Now, Trichinella spiralis or trichinosis. So this is another interesting parasite also because it the human is a dead end host. Just like how we would have other aberrant infections, the human is also a dead end infection with Trichinella spiralis. One interesting about this this Trichinella spiralis, is an intracellular worm, but then intramultiple cellular. You'll see how it gets to infect what kind of cells and how far it goes. So Trichinella spiralis is a nematode occurring in rats, pigs, bears, and humans, but most responsible for the so-called trichinosis, or known as the porkworm, due to being found mainly in undercooked pork products. So the story of the discovery of trichinosis is somewhat interesting because there are two people who are recognized in the world to have discovered this trichinosis. One was the James Paget, who was a first-year medical student in St. Bartholomew's Hospital in London. And the story around this discovery is back then they were working on cadavers. And one of the people that were working on the cadavers as a first-year student doing anatomy, just like how we would be doing. And the people who are doing the cadavering, they're wondering, why do their knives, the surgical blades, get blunt so fast? And they're trying to, look around and see what is happening. And they got to find out that they opened up the chest cavity of the cadaver that they're working on, and while they're cutting the diaphragm, they found this is known as sand-like structures in the diaphragm of this person. It's like, oh, the same problem that as always we find in these patients with this kind. So this student picked a sample of that diaphragm, and then went to another lab where they found Mr. Brownian, who discovered Brownian motion, and then looked under a microscope, and then they found those little tiny hair-like spiral nematodes. And then again, at the same time, there's someone else who worked around it. But I think it's very interesting that the first year medical student who was very inquisitive was able to kind of like discover it. And James Paget, who became very famous, is a Sarah Paget, is also known by the Paget's disease, which is another very known disease among people. So they managed to trace this life cycle. The person who traced it was the Odin, described the life cycle and how it came around, and they proved the potential effectivity of these ancestor larvae who fed with an experimental animals. The name Trichinella is hair, comes from the Greek word of trichos, which is hair, and spiralis is usually coily, and you see the coily appearance, especially in the muscle cells. They look like this. Right, so the morphology is a white roundworm with unsegmented bodies, and is visible to naked eye, but the adult size is between 1.5 to by 0.04 millimeters, and adult females are 3 to 0.06 millimeters, and the muscle larvae can measure about 1 millimeter. Now this is important to remember. The adult, the one that causes the problems is the muscle. In the muscles of a human being is the larvae that infects the human beings. You could see here, these are the striated muscles, and then these ones around here, these are the Trichinella spiralis here. These ones, and the muscle tissue. So it's of course a kingdom Animalia. This is a classification, genus Trichinella, and this is the one of interest is Trichinella spiralis. about 11 million individuals are infected with Trichinella spiralis, most of the infection. And this has been a huge problem before people knew that it was caused because of the eating of undercooked or poorly cooked pork products. We might not have that problem as much in our context in Tanzania, partly because, you know, when you eat pork is roasted or well cooked. But these larvae would die if they expose them to about 150 degrees Celsius for about 10 minutes. So if you cook your pork by that point, you'll already killed it. But other people in other cultures who eat salted meat or just ham and things like that, they tend to get these infections. The life cycle. Infective stages in cystic larvae are found in the muscles of pigs and other animals after humans ingest a cyst from the undercooked meat. There's something called pepsin and hyaluronic acid in the GI tract, in the stomach. It frees out the cyst coming from these muscles. And then the cyst contains the larva. The larva migrates into the small intestines. Once the larva gets in the small intestine, it molts, and then it becomes an adult. Most at least 4 times before becoming an adult. About 30 to 34 hours after the cysts when they were originally ingested, the adult mates within 5 days to produce another larva. The larva then use the piercing mouth parts, and then they pass through the intestinal mucosa and enter the lymphatic vessels, and then they disseminate in the entire bloodstream to go in many other places, including the preferential place, which is the muscles. So once the larva travels in the capillaries in different organs, the retina, myocardium, you know, it can even go to the brain. But once it enters the skeletal muscle cells, it chills there, and then that becomes the nursing cells. Usually you become multiple strata muscle cells, which are longer, and then it becomes a nursing cell. Then it becomes encapsulated there, and it then capillary network they develop around, the complete encystation of the larva along those areas. So again, for your memory, pigs, rats, or rodents, pigs because they also eat other animals. For human beings, it would be the eating of undercooked meat. And then the larva, which is encysted in the muscles of the pigs, get into the stomach. Once into the stomach, the pepsin releases it. The larva comes down into the small intestines. It grows, it becomes an adult in the small intestine, and then it mates, it produces new larvae, and then the new larvae comes out through the mucosa, gets deposited in the circulation, whether in the diaphragm, which mostly is the place where they like to stay, or any other part of the skeletal muscles. So the diagnostic stage would be when you get the skeletal muscles. This is the depiction of the larva piercing through the GI villi. Just wants the villi to get to the other parts of the body. So the pathogenesis, there are several, depending on where they are. So at the intestine, the larva insists and invade the intestinal epithelium, as you've seen in the previous image, and the duodenum and the duodenum, and then develop into an adult. Symptoms become nausea, diarrhea, abdominal cramps. Sometimes you could have vomiting. This could be diagnosed as food poisoning, and someone would just take some ORS and let it go. But the illness can be within 20 to 30 hours of the ingestion of the infected food. Someone says, okay, I just ate food poisoning, but then this is the parasite that is causing the problems. And then after that, it gets in the muscle phase after it has molted and get into the circulation. And the muscle phase occurs during the larva, and the migration, deposition, and the encapsulate in the muscles. Typical presentation will be fever, edema of the face, swelling and weakness of the affected muscles. Eosinophilia is a constant feature because of the immunological response. In the heart, can cause myocarditis, encephalitis. These are potential fatal complications of this. And then respiratory symptoms can occur, especially when it infects in the diaphragm and other places. And this will be 1 to 4 weeks after the infection. And then the final phase is the encapsulation phase. Encapsulation phase is where the they can last 1 to 8 months after the infection, and fever and other symptoms will subside. And then you have these calcifications of the cyst along the different parts of the muscles, including the diaphragm, which is most important. And then you could have that sandy-like presentation in the skeletal muscles. So the symptoms, if you have a large burden of worms, you could have the symptoms that have been presented up to 2 to 7 days. But also large larvae also in the tissues can cause body inflammatory process. And classic sign of trichinosis would be periorbital edema, where there's a swelling around the eyes, which may be caused by vasculitis. Another symptom would be splinter hemorrhages on the nails is also common symptoms. And the most dangerous case of worms is entering the central nervous system. This parasite cannot survive there, but it causes a lot of damage in the central nervous system that could lead to even respiratory paralysis. Again, you can have death within 4 to 6 weeks of the infection, depending on what the causes of where the parasite is. The life cycle of the parasite can be passed from one host to another because of ingestion, but nobody really eats human beings. I mean, unless you're cannibals. So you don't expect them to move from human to human transmission. So you would always have from animals to humans, and depending on larva positioning, and only a single cycle can occur in one host for continuation and maintaining the species. So this is another important thing to notice. So there has 3 cycles, right? So it could be pig to pig when pigs eat everything. So they can, when the pig are fed with undercooked household garbage, it could be rat to rat. These will be rats who may be eating, who go to eat household garbage, or they can eat each other. Or it could be a feral cycle, which involves a wild animal such as a boar or a rodent to other herbivores. So there are even some cases of other carnivores, I mean, who eat meat of other, like these are birds who could be potentially be infected with it. So human infection would be from within this feral cycle where eating undercooked meat, but then the cycle would not continue because it's a dead end. Diagnosis is usually, but it could do muscle biopsy for trichinosis detection. And then also there are several immunodiagnostic tests such as ELISA, immunoassays, as blood tests to check eosinophilia, increased levels of creatinine for scanners, IgGs and antibodies can also be detected against newly hatched larvae. Treatment, patients can be treated with either mebendazole or albendazole, and symptoms can be relieved by use of analgesics or corticosteroids to treat the patients. Prevention, make sure that legislation in terms of people don't eat undercooked meat or meat inspection and things like that. And this was very interesting. By the time this disease was characterized in the 1800s, there's one of the famous people who discovered it went around giving public lecture around these trichinosis and Trichinella spiralis and the fact that people should not eat undercooked meat. And at some point led to a decline in the stock market for pigs. So meat people who were working in these areas, they did not like these kind of lectures for public education, but you know, it's a fact. So you need education, you need proper food preparation and hygienic pig farming. All right, so that's it for now. If you have any questions.